special guest here today. It's the president and general manager of the Columbus Clippers, Ken Schnacke. So let's give a round of applause for Ken. Thank you so much again for coming onto campus. I grew up near Columbus. I've been to a lot of Clippers games over the years. I'm a big fan of the organization. And, you know, I've watched it from afar, but I think everybody here thinks about how the minor league system works compared to the major leagues and thinks about the people behind the scenes running it, which is, like you said, you've been doing it for a few decades now, and a lot of experience, and obviously seeing Huntington Park and seeing, you know, how well the Clippers have been ingrained in Columbus is just an honor to have you here. So I think I want to first start just by asking you, where did your passion for baseball start? And, you know, as we also talked about before, you didn't have necessarily a traditional education in sports or like business or sports industry. You're an engineer coming out of college, correct? So, you know, I would love to hear how you first got into the game and what you were thinking as you were growing up and going through undergrad and then, you know, finding a career coming out of college.
I think my love of the game came from my dad, and I think that's how baseball is still passed down from generation to generation. Playing catch with your dad, even your mom out in the yard. Sometimes it's even your grandparents. They take you to a baseball game, they start to explain the game. In the case of my dad, he played semi-pro ball. I peaked out at about 16, so I knew I wasn't going to play. As far as being an engineer, I got one good piece of advice when I was in high school, and that was my counselor said that you should go to college and tackle the toughest subjects you can tackle, because then no matter what you decide to do, you don't have to prove to people that you're smart enough. If you kind of just get your way through and then you decide you want to be a mathematician or an engineer, you might not have the education to do that and go prove yourself. So I was good with numbers, I was good with math, so I got into engineering. I graduated, I went to Ohio Northern, which is over in Ada, Ohio, where they make the NFL footballs, by the way, over by Bowling Green. And I took a 5-year engineering program in 4 years, got out, took my first engineering job, and then I was recruited to come to Columbus when they created the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency. So they brought me down to Columbus, and I was in charge of air pollution control for the state of Ohio. So I did that for a few years, and everyone thought that was a great job. It wasn't a job I could see myself in, and my love of baseball, I just kind of got the urge to go try it. So I took a flyer, I went to the baseball winter meetings one time with a buddy and met some people and thought it was a pretty big clique and there was no way in. And a month or so later, I got a call from the president of minor league baseball, and I had met him down in Florida at these meetings, and he hooked me up with a team, and I quit my job and I moved to Amarillo, Texas. And from there, we bought an independent team, and I ran a team in the Rio Grande Valley. And while that was going on, this movement to bring baseball back to Columbus had started. Columbus has had professional baseball all the way back to the 1880s. And there was even a time where Columbus had Major League Baseball. We were in the International League, which is actually the second oldest league in professional baseball behind the National League. It was older than the American League. So Columbus had a team consistently from the 1880s through 1970. And after 1970, the team left. The stadium on Mount Street sat dormant, and a movement to bring baseball back to Columbus started in 1975 and 1976. So 85,000 petition signatures were gathered to bring baseball back. So I was fortunate. I'd been down in Texas from Ohio, I had been living in Columbus, and I was the last guy hired in November of '76 when the Columbus Clippers were created. And back then and for a long time, the relationship between Major League Baseball and minor league baseball is every Major League Baseball team can and must have one AAA team and one AA team. They can have as many Class A teams as they want. So when we emerged as the Columbus Clippers in '77 and '78, we were affiliated with the Pittsburgh Pirates. John Galbraith, the Galbraith Company, Darby Dan Farms here in Ohio, in Columbus. They were the owners of the Pittsburgh Pirates. They were very successful business people here, and we were affiliated with them. And that lasted for a couple of years, and then we hooked up with George Steinbrenner and the New York Yankees, and as I always say, I survived that for 28 years. And then in 2 years, the Yankees left us in '06 while we were starting to get into thinking about a new ballpark, and we hooked up for 2 years with the Washington Nationals, and then with the opening of Huntington Park in 2009, and since that time we've been affiliated with the Cleveland Indians. So it's been a wonderful relationship. I've got to do a lot of things in the game as time goes by. I was the chairman of the board of all of minor league baseball. I helped create the licensing program for what was then 160 minor league baseball teams. I had a lot to do with that development. Major League Baseball saw fit to cancel their contract with the industry that was minor league baseball and our governing association in September of last year. So that thing fell by the wayside, and Major League Baseball has kind of taken us over under a new collective umbrella. We more or less have become a franchisee of Major League Baseball, and they dropped the number of teams by 40. So where there were 160, there's now 120. There's still only one Class A team for every one of the 30 Major League teams. There's one AA team, and now there's 2 Class A teams. So the industry has changed. Major League Baseball has done part of this to make the system more efficient. You know, it's unfortunate that 40 communities that had tax dollars in their ballparks have no brand of professional baseball, but some of them now have collegiate baseball teams, they have independent baseball teams, and they've had to adjust to a different horizon that's on the scene. We're not even 1 year into this, so we're not even sure what the future holds. We now have a 10-year relationship with Major League Baseball called a professional development license moving forward. We are partners with the Cleveland Indians, and we will be for the next 10 years. So a lot has gone on in our business while this pandemic was going on. And of course, the pandemic last year, 2020, there was no minor league baseball. So all of us had to do without. The Columbus Clippers and Huntington Park are sub-related, nonprofit corporate entities of Franklin County. Franklin County actually owns the asset that is the baseball franchise and is the stadium. And that happened at a time in 1976 where the stars kind of aligned magically. That could no longer happen today because of the cost of these two factors. We have never gotten a tax dollar in operating the Columbus Clippers all the way back to 1977 when we started, and we are very proud of everything we've done. Our mission is to be affordable, wholesome family entertainment for the community of Central Ohio. When we opened in 1977, our adult general admission price was $5. Next year, in our 46th year, it's going to be $8. Our kids' ticket was $2, and it's going to be $6 next year. We haven't kept up with inflation, but once again, that's not our goal. Our goal is to pay all of our bills, not need any money, any support at all, and provide a level of entertainment for Central Ohio, and we've been very fortunate in how we've been able to do that for the past 45 years.
Yeah, that was a great rundown of the history of the Columbus Clippers. One thing that you touched on was the construction of Huntington Park. Not too long ago, since we've all been alive, and I've lived down the street, so in Columbus, and that's a big part of Columbus baseball, not just the Clippers, but I've played there. I know a lot of different uses come of Huntington Park. We had somebody from the Columbus crew talk about their state-of-the-art new stadium, but Huntington Park, I know, is regarded as one of the best ballparks in minor league baseball, if not the best. I know I'm biased, but yeah, I'm sure you'd agree. But how in old, was it Cooper Stadium?
Franklin County and
yeah.
then Cooper Stadium.
Yeah.
When that opened in 1977, that was really a state-of-the-art. We had AstroTurf. We were the first minor league stadium to ever have roof suites, and we were modeled after Riverfront Stadium in Cincinnati, Three Rivers in Pittsburgh, St. Louis Ballpark, Busch Stadium. It was a multi-purpose facility with the AstroTurf. So, we actually played high school football there. We pretty much used the field every day with AstroTurf. Ohio State alumni such as Archie Griffin played there when they were in high school, and it was really state-of-the-art. As time went on, I actually was working. I never thought in my lifetime or my tenure that we would ever leave that ballpark. I was trying to make that ballpark the Wrigley Field of minor league baseball. It was surrounded on two sides by cemeteries, an old industrial area on the west side. But there was no movement in the community. Nothing happened. And I was trying to keep up with everybody, keep up with the Joneses, as you will. And while we were doing this, the Ohio Football Stadium went through a $100 million renovation. They built the Schottenstein Center to replace St. John Arena. The community, after defeating a ballot initiative and refusing to pay for an NHL arena and a soccer stadium 3 different times, Nationwide Insurance went ahead and built Nationwide Arena, and they built the Moffrey Stadium up at the fairgrounds with the Hunt family out of Kansas City. So trying to just remodel Cooper Stadium, we had no chance of keeping up with the Joneses. So a movement came about to start to move us, and it took 3 or 4 years of going to all these meetings and listening to all these people talk about why we should go here and why we should go there, and talking to the county commissioners. They weren't against me moving, but they just told me, Ken, if you want to move the team, there's no tax dollars. You can use us to do your bonding power, but you have to pay for all the bills. So we settled on this parcel of land, this 8 acres, that now became Huntington Park. And as I said, Franklin County Stadium, Cooper Stadium, was really ahead of its time. So when we sat down to design Huntington Park, I can remember the engineers coming in with all these blueprints. What are these things? Well, these are all the other ballparks we've built. I said, I don't even want you to open them. I want you to be thinking of the big transition in Major League Baseball happened when the Chicago White Sox moved across the street from Old Comiskey Park to New Comiskey Park, which they still are in today, although it's not called Comiskey Park. Then they built a stereotypical ballpark that was outlined after all the other ballparks that had been built. And a couple years later, this brand new idea of Camden Yards came to light. And no ballpark would ever be the same. From Camden Yards, you went ahead and you ended up with Cleveland with Progressive Field. You ended up with a stadium down in Texas. You ended up with PNC Park in Pittsburgh. So I told these guys, I don't want to build another Comiskey Park. I want to build the next Camden Yards. And I want to honor, as a baseball guy, the iconic ballparks in this country. So when you go to Huntington Park and you see that 22-foot green high wall in right field, that's my mini green monster. In Fenway Park, that left field wall is 37 feet tall. Ours is only 22 feet tall. Those holes in the fences with the wire screening, those are oversized knot holes. And knot holes go back to the 1950s and 60s when ballparks were built out of wood, and little kids would look through the knot hole in the fence and they could see part of the game for free. And then you stand underneath the scoreboard in right center field and you can look in from under the street. That was modeled after San Francisco ballpark, the new ballpark they built that was AT&T Ballpark. It now has a new name and I'm not sure what it is. What is it? Oracle Park, thank you. The backdrop in center field raises and lowers on cables. There is only one other ballpark in the country that does that, and that's the Staten Island ballpark that lowers their backdrop by hand so you can see the New York skyline. So we lower our backdrop when we go on the road, so you've got great visuals from the intersection of Nationwide Boulevard and Neal Avenue. And then that left field building, that's my tribute to Camden Yards. It's a 3-story building, and on top of that, a little section of bleachers, so you feel like you're sitting on the rooftops of Wrigley Field looking into the ballpark. And then behind home, we divided the press box, and we moved it to both sides so we could have an active club where people could always see and feel the game of baseball. We also moved our concession stands and made them a 360-degree experience with 2 themes on each side. So once again, when you got out of your seat and you went to get food and beverage, you never lost sight and sound of the game. I wanted to always try to keep the fans connected to the game. I've seen too many times where all these exclusive areas and clubs take you away from the game. You're behind glass, and you feel like you're watching it on a big TV. All of our suites are operated with garage doors, so they all open and close. There's no air conditioning up there. It's just free air movement. So we've been able to create a pretty good experience. I think 11 times we've been named Ballpark of the Year. And we just finished 3rd in the country for the best ballpark experience after this year. So we're really proud of the things that we do that go on down at Huntington Park.
Yeah, I would recommend going to Diamond Dog Night for anybody that hasn't, because I've been to a few of those over the years, but the whole experience of Huntington Park is great, and people go absolutely for the features of the ballpark, which you mentioned, but the other thing that people go for, obviously, is the game being played on the field. The team, the AAA league, is as close as you can get to the majors, and you're affiliated now with the Cleveland Indians. You talked about the other teams, including the Yankees, including Derek Jeter, played for the Clippers at one point. I'm very interested in hearing what is the relationship between, especially like as close as you can be to the major league team and the top of the line, sending players down constantly back and forth. What is the relationship top down in say the Cleveland Indians organization? How do you factor into that yourself, and how is it interacting with players that are on the cusp of playing Major League Baseball, rising players that are getting sent down for rehab assignments?
That's a lot of questions.
That is a lot of questions, but I do want to hear about essentially where you fit in the player side of the organization, where the Clippers fit in.
Okay. We talk to the Cleveland Indians every day, and what happens, there's a trickle-down effect. When someone gets hurt up in Cleveland, the first thing they do is they'll call Columbus, our manager, our coaches, myself, and they'll have decided who they want from Columbus that will go up and be in Cleveland, and how soon can we get them there. And then from that point on, we have to decide what we need in Columbus. And that's not always an easy decision as you move these guys up and down. And for example, just to take into account, when someone gets hurt up in Cleveland, we're going to go to Akron for a player. Akron's going to go down below them. 4 or 5 lives get changed in the next 24 hours. People get called up to a new city. Conversely, when someone comes off the injured list, or they acquire someone in a trade and they report to Cleveland, then their roster gets too big. Someone gets sent to Columbus. We send someone down to Akron. It goes further down, and usually the last guy gets released, and his career is over unless he hooks up with an independent team. So there's a lot of movement that goes on. What goes on in our consideration is what kind of player do we want? If we want one of the young stars that's at AA, we have to take him with the understanding that he has to be in the lineup almost every day because he's a prospect. We may have a guy on our bench that we'd rather get some playing time for because we think he's a really good AAA asset right now. Let's keep him healthy. Let's get him some more at-bats, and let's see him a little better. in which case we would get a different type of player for Akron. You know, there are 3 types of players that are on a AAA roster. There's 1/3 of the squad can be the 22nd to 26th man on the Cleveland team. They just need to be in the right place at the right time. The other third are prospects that are coming up, like a young Francisco Lindor, a young Carlos Santana, a young Shane Bieber that we're getting up here, we're working, we're taking a look at, we're polishing. We're not quite sure how good they're going to be. The last third of them, it's kind of the Peter principle. AAA is as high as they're going to play, but as long as they're good teammates and they understand their role and they cause no controversy in the clubhouse, we need them to have a full squad. And they'll play with us for a number of years, and then they'll realize that their career has come to the end and they'll step away and do something. It's hard for an athlete when they get that close to ever admit they're done. Those are very tough discussions. And, you know, a AAA manager probably has one of the hardest jobs in the game because it's not so much just calling the play. It's easy to call a guy in and tell Francisco Lindor or Shane Bieber, hey, you're going up to the Indians. Logan Allen came and went many times this year. It's telling a player you're sending him down to Akron or even releasing a player, which we've done from the AAA level, is much harder to do. So, you know, we're in contact with Cleveland every day. I try not to bother Chris and Mike too much, Antonetti and Chernoff. Carter Hawkins was my go-to guy who just got hired to be the GM of the Chicago Cubs. So James Harris works with him. He probably will be my go-to guy, at least immediately for now.
Yeah, that's like very insightful stuff about that I've been wondering personally, but I'm sure many of our members have as well. So I think before we open it up for a Q&A, my last question, I guess, would be, since we're now in the off season for baseball, what plans do you have for the Clippers for next summer, like another year where we're actually able to have fans? And what does an off season look like for a AAA president and GM?
Well, it's not really an off season, it's a different season. We're in a period right now where we've reduced our office hours because I worry about our employees getting burned out. I mean, when we're home, we come in between 8 and 9 o'clock in the morning, and sometimes we don't leave till 10, 11 o'clock at night. And sometimes we're doing that for 12 out of 13 days or 5 or 6 days in a row. You get some serious burnout. So I really try to protect our employees and give them time off. You know, I'll tease the golfers that the one thing that's nice is you can have off days during the week when tee times aren't so bad and you don't have to play a 5-hour round. You can go out on Tuesday and Wednesday and play golf. So we're kind of in a reduced fashion right now. I'm trying to give everyone some quality time to recoup. But we've already have next year's schedule. We've already started the planning process. We had a call with all the GMs today from AAA talking a little bit about next year. We're not sure about COVID. We're not sure where we stand next year. You know, we got through this season. We really were pretty lucky. There was about 14 AAA games that got canceled with COVID scares and COVID cases. Columbus didn't have any of those. We were very lucky. The Indian players were over 90% vaccinated, so we were in a good spot. There were some teams that only had about 50% of their players vaccinated, and they were walking a tightrope every day. So we're not really sure where we are. The other big issue for professional baseball next year is the Major League Players Association contract with Major League Baseball expires on December 1st. And we're told that that's going to be a war. And the players are out for blood. They feel that they've lost the last couple of negotiations, and we have no idea what's going to go on. Now, under the prior system, when we had a governance body for minor league baseball, we had guarantees in that contract that we would play with any work stoppage. But now, if there is a work stoppage next year, we're not sure if Major League Baseball will even send us players. So I hope it's not likely, but it's not inconceivable the 2 out of 3 years we may not play at Huntington Park. Gosh, I hope that doesn't happen. I don't know what I do.
Yeah, me too. But yeah, I wasn't aware of that, so that's great stuff. But I think it's time we open it up for our Q&A. Anybody wanting to ask the first question, feel free. Dave is going to come around. He has a little foam mic over here that he'll run around with.
So when you were watching someone like Shane Bieber at Columbus, did you know, like when you were watching him, how much success he would have in MLB? Or like you tell?
No, we didn't have him long enough to be able to get a projection. We had Corey Kluber long enough to see what he was capable of. Bieber kind of flew through the system. I mean, we only had him for 2 or 3 starts. And this year, the same thing with Tristan Mckenzie. Tristan Mckenzie had made 3 or 4 big league starts. He had made 2 or 3 starts for Columbus, but they were always on the road. And he came up to me one time and goes, "Man, am I ever going to get to pitch in Huntington Park?" So, you know, we did have a chance to see him. But, no, Bieber I did not have a chance to see. But some of the others, you know, like I said, Corey Kluber, we had a really good chance to see. Aaron Savali had very good stuff while he was here. Going back to some of the earlier Indian days, Michael Brantley was one of my favorite players. And Michael Brantley used all 3 of his options going up and down. Every time a player gets called up and sent down, it's considered an option. But no matter how many times you go up and down in 1 year, that's only 1 option. So a player has 3 major league options, and they had under the old system 3 minor league options. So Michael Brantley was actually the player to be named later in the trade for CC Sabathia. The key player in that trade was Matt Laporta, who's an outfielder, who was great at Columbus, but he was a 4A player, I say. He could not play at the major league level. He could not hit the curveball. No matter how good your strengths are in baseball, the opponent will find your weakness, and they will beat that to death. So one of the hardest things to do with players is to get them to work on their weakness. You know, if they can hit the ball 1,000,000 miles, they want to take as many at-bats as they can. If they can't hit the breaking ball, they just want them to throw fastballs. So it's not your strength that keeps you in the big leagues. It's your weakness that keeps you from being in the big leagues. So you can hide that a little bit at AAA because the players are not quite polished. They can throw fastballs, and they're learning to locate, but their spin ratio and how they throw their curves and their sliders and splitters are just a little bit off. So a hitter can adapt a little easier at this level, but they take that deficiency up to the major league level, and the major league pitching staffs will just beat them to death. So, you know, Michael Brantley turned out to be the cornerstone player in that deal and saved that deal from being such a tragedy. And he was really struggling, and I can remember having a conversation with him. He had tremendous work ethic, and I told him the only other player that I had seen in my time in Columbus that had that kind of work ethic was Don Mattingly when we had him as a young player. So, you know, some of the players, like I said, we get to see. Francisco Lindor, we got to see for a long time. Jose Ramirez, we got to see for a long time. I thought Jose Ramirez, when he first went up, was going to be valuable as a utility guy, playing all around. I'm not sure we saw enough of him to realize he was going to be an all-star at third base. So, I mean, some players do surprise you along the line, and some of them just mature a little late. So you've got to be careful your thought process on a player and how long you watch him and how much time you give him.
You talked about being affiliated with different like major league teams. For all seeing those teams, like the Pirates, the Yankees, and the Indians, like each of those organizations kind of handle and interact with you guys differently from each other? Is it kind of just the same type of interaction all around?
No, the interaction is very different from team to team. I grew up in Cleveland, so I hated the New York Yankees because they always beat the crap out of the Indians. But it was nice being a Yankee with George and having access to all that money when you wanted to do things. Not many teams have as much money as the New York Yankees do. So it was fun being with the Yankees. You know, we had that talent stream in the mid-'90s where we had Posada and we had Jeter and we had Bernie Williams. We had Mariano Rivera that started out as a starting pitcher before he became a reliever. He threw a 5-inning rain-shortened no-hitter at the old ballpark. Robinson Cano was probably the last big Yankee that we had. And actually going back, Don Mattingly was the first Yankee. George Steinbrenner early on didn't believe in rookies. You know, he would go out and sign some high-priced veteran and steal him. Don Mattingly was the first time where he took a rookie ball player up from AAA and gave him a chance to establish himself. So the Yankee way was a little different way. Pittsburgh, we joined them when they were on their way to winning the World Series in 1979 with Willie Stargell and the We Are Family thing. We caught them at a pretty good time. Washington was not in a good place when we caught them. They had not risen yet. They were really down below. They were operating on nickels and pennies. And then Cleveland's been very good to us. And the relationship with Cleveland for the fans here makes all the sense in the world. It was okay being with the Yankees in the mid-'90s. People really liked all the winning that we did. But I had some Cleveland fans that would just cuss me out and whatever. I'm never coming to that place while you're with the Yankees and whatever. And now as we come to Huntington Park, now I have fans that come because we're the Indians. But now I hear from fans that don't come because we're no longer with the Yankees. So, you know, you can't please everybody. But no, the relationships are different. But it is important that you have a good relationship.
I just had sort of a question about your start. It's sort of loaded, but when you said the winter meetings, would that be the MLB winter meetings?
Yes.
And also, what do those conversations look like? And I guess what was your role when you started out? Did you immediately jump into your role? I guess just you start.
Yeah, I don't recommend it. Right now, in the way sports is, you really need to try to get an internship, and you really ought to do it in a sport that you're passionate about. But really, any internship is your first step in to see what you do. I would tell a person today, if you really want to work for a major league team, you're better off being the post boy delivering the mail in that major league front office as opposed to trying to be in a AAA operation and you work your way to the top. There's not that much lateral movement. I would assume football, basketball, and soccer are pretty much the same. I have no idea what golf is like. Today the swing has gone to the analytics. So people, all you young folks that are great with computers and all the 3D imagery and everything you do, they've almost swung the pendulum too far that way. And baseball has probably been damaged more than any other sport by the overuse of analytics. I think you'll see the pendulum come back. You're saying no?
I said I can't stand that.
Yeah. So, we've got to find a happy medium. But, you really, if you're learning to get into sports, depending on the sport, you need some basic speech courses. You have to be able to sit here in front of a group of 35 or 50 or 500 or 1,000 and be able to talk without stumbling over yourself. You need basic finances so you understand numbers and put things together. You don't have to be a CPA. You need some worldly knowledge, and if you're in baseball, you need another language. I wish I had stuck with Spanish a little longer. I took Spanish in high school because the football coach made me, because my job was to keep the all-star linebacker eligible to play. So he had to sit next to me and cheat off my sheet so he could play football. That was my job. I got through it okay. I wish I had stayed with it. So, it's different sports call for different languages. But a general education so you understand what you're doing will take you a great deal in this field. The one thing, unfortunately, we can't teach people, God bless you if you have common sense, because so many people don't. You know, to me, the worst thing that's happened in this society is the advent of social media. Social media, where people hide behind anonymity and can just throw you under the bus night after night, is just really terrible. And let me give you an example. We do a lot. The gay community are great fans of the Clippers. They come out, they support us, we support them, we work together on their initiatives. When the pandemic hit and the arts community was shut down, the only group that got to perform live was the Columbus Gay Men's Chorus that played on the field at Huntington Park last October. And they had such a good experience, they came back this year and did 3 outdoor shows. Well, we've had some groups, the Harmony group, has not even performed this year because they don't want to play outdoors and there's no space indoors where they're not allowed to still perform with the pandemic issues. So we did this, and then as we got to the season, we had a chance to sign up with Chick-fil-A to become and bring their product up to the 3rd story. We have a couple gay employees, and I heard some rumors that there was some discontent with the gay community in Chick-fil-A. So I asked them, and they said, no, we go there 2 or 3 times a week. When we announced Chick-fil-A was coming into Huntington Park, in the next 24 hours, we got over 600 very abusive, hate social emails sent to us. I'm never coming to the park. You guys are idiots. All kinds of language I can't repeat. And as we tracked some of them down, they weren't even from Columbus. But we were so concerned, we actually held off the first homestand and didn't let Chick-fil-A into the ballpark until we had a chance to sit down with the Gay Men's Chorus Association in Stonewall, Columbus, and talk to them, and they were fine with it. They got behind it. And we were able to bring Chick-fil-A in. When we had the Gay Men's Chorus, we took their banner down. We didn't want to do anything to infuriate them, but they understood it. You know, everyone wants everyone. They want to tell you these days what you should do, according to their line of thought, and not what you must do or what you ought to do for the general good. It's the same thing with the vaccinations. You know, there's a football coach at Washington State, I think, just got fired, and part of their assistants because they would not get vaccinated. And the school had announced that you couldn't come to campus and you couldn't be part of the university unless you were vaccinated. It applied to students and to all the professors and administrators. So, you know, I don't begrudge people having the right to make a decision, but that right to make their decision should not threaten somebody else's right to live their life. So,
Right there.
What's your personal relationship with the players? Are there any players that have been far removed from the Clippers organization that you're I'm best friend or I'm gonna be friends with them for the rest of my life?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear all of that.
What's your personal relationship with the players?
I don't get too close to the players. I want them to know who I am so we can help them when we need help. I want them to see that our staff is working to make their experience fun while they're in Columbus. I always tell them when we have our first meeting of the year, and some of the veterans who have come back will kind of chirp at me a little bit. I understand that you all want to be from Columbus and not in Columbus because they want to get to the major leagues and be a Cleveland Indian or get traded and go somewhere else. So, I mean, I know who they are. I have a relationship with them. I try to help them out when we can. We don't socialize. I socialize with the manager and the coaches. I just like to know them and appreciate their talents and we'll sometimes have some nice discussions about the business side and things that the players see us doing with the fans for the teams and things we do for their wives and girlfriends.
So, what's your position like during the draft process, as there's so many different rounds in baseball? Like, what percentage is taken by the MLB teams and what percentage is taken by the lower teams?
Well, the Major League Draft is for their entire organization. And there used to be 40 rounds. A year ago, they cut it to 5. This year, they had 20 rounds. So only with doing away with 40 teams, only 20 rounds of 30 teams is only 600 players with some supplemental picks that got picked this year. So those players will start out at the lower level. They would say that a really great college baseball team would struggle to play Class AA baseball. They are not ready to play AAA baseball. Probably would do best at a high Class A setting. But these college kids that come out will go to the instructional complexes and try to work their way up. When you come out of college, they'd like you to be ready, since you're 21 or 22, to go to a high A level, AA, AAA, and get to the big leagues by the time you're 24 or 25. If you come out of high school at 17 or 18 and don't go to college, your body doesn't have quite as much use. They get to you a little sooner to kind of train your bad habits, and they hope to get you up to the big leagues by 20 or 22. If you go outside the country, the Dominican League in Mexico, there we can sign players at 16. So you'll have players coming into pro ball upon their 16th birthday, and that's why you see some 20-year-old players, usually international players that are playing at the major league level. It usually takes 3 to 4 years to take a young talent and get them to the major league level.
I got one. I don't need the mic though. It kind of builds off one of the previous questions. Obviously, a winning team, a successful team starts with the players, but you also have to have a good relationship with all of the managers and all of the professional staff. What is something you feel like you've done leading that team to create the success you guys have had in Columbus?
There was a long period of time, and when we started with the Indians, there was this thought process in Major League Baseball that they didn't care about winning at the minor league level. And that was one of the things in spending a lot of time with George Steinbrenner that I came to learn, that winning breeds winning. So when you have a Derek Jeter and he wins it at Class A and he wins at AA and he comes up and wins at AAA, gets to the big leagues, he's used to winning. He wants to win. You can develop an athlete in any sport that can get up to that level and earn the major league minimum, whether it's the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, and not be a winning player. And they will just hold on as long as they can for that money. But to get a player that gets to that level and he wants to win, that's a special kind of player. That's a special kind of relationship, and I'm telling you, those are harder and harder to find these days. And the problem with all sports, not as many kids are playing them. We're having a tougher time because there's so many different choices. And when it comes to team sports, having players getting enough repetitions so they can move up a level and be able to perform with their teammates is something that we really think about and we really worry about. But to develop a winning culture in this society is starting to become something very difficult to do. Too many people are just okay with the status quo. Pay me my $3 million, pay me my $5 million. Let me just kind of work through this till I'm arbitration eligible, and I'm not going to do the little things. And analytics has taken some of the little things away. Baseball players think you're demeaning them if you ask them to bunt, move a runner over. Some of these guys couldn't bunt if you gave them $1 million. Hitting behind the runner, moving the runner over, taking the extra base. They're told by their agents, you don't want to get hurt. You're going to lose out on money. The determination of being a great player and overcoming all these things and just giving it all on the field, it's a trait that's getting harder and harder to find. And I think it's true in more sports than just baseball. Yes, sir. Can you take your mask off? Just ask your question.
Yeah. So I was just wondering, like, sort of like your day-to-day operations are like, is it, like, is it sort of different every day, or do you have sort of like a set schedule that you do certain things at a certain time?
Well, my schedule every day that's one of the things I love about my job, what I've been doing for 45 years. I've never had the same schedule 2 days in a row. Now, operationally, we get there in the morning, and like I said, the first thing, the Cleveland Indians have 26 healthy players. If they do, our day can go on. If they don't, we're on hold. But then you get into the tasks of going over the game reports of everything from the night before. How many tickets did you sell? How much food and beverage did you sell? How much merchandise did you move? Do you have any injury reports for fans treated for injuries that you've got to follow up with? Did you run out of any supplies that you have to replenish? Was anything in the ballpark broken? Do you have any seats or things that have to be attended to? You've got people cleaning up the ballpark. That kind of takes the morning, the day after the game, and then as you come out of lunchtime, you start to have people coming in to start to prepare food. You start to have the players come in for early medical treatment and then getting on the field, and you start to build very slowly for the next night's game. And then as the day goes on, they start popping popcorn, so now the smells of the game, you're starting to feel that, and they start running music when the players are taking BP, and you're looking. You have some time there where you look a little bit beyond tonight's game as to what you've got in the homestand coming up the next day or two. Is there anything you need to attend to? And then you've got some people looking to the next homestand and some of the promotions they've got going and what do you need to follow up on. So there's a lot of activity going on that keeps the job from being boring. And as far as a president and GM, I consider my job is more about putting out fires and stopping things before they become big issues and trying to get all the trains moving on the same track.
You got anything else? All right.
Yeah.
Let's see what time we got.
Yep, we're coming up on 7 o'clock, so
Okay.
that's perfect timing. Again, thank you for coming out here and answering everybody's questions. Those were all great, as usual. And so I just want to give it up for Ken one more time here, guys.
Good luck to all of you. Keep studying hard and use your imagination. Use your imagination as to what you want to do in the future. And there may be even a job that hasn't even been created yet that you can see yourself doing. Everything is just changing so fast in this world. And you young people have such an advantage over some of us old timers and the things we did back in the old days, as they say. So don't let yourself get discouraged. It's a great big world out there. There's a lot of opportunities, and just keep working hard because hard work is always rewarded. Thanks. Good luck.
Yeah, absolutely. You're welcome.